What if your entire family laughed at you, right before they found out your boyfriend could buy them all? She arrived in a simple dress, hoping for warmth. They gave her wine on her blouse, laughter behind her back, and a seat at the children's table. But when a Rolls Royce pulled up, and he stepped out, the room would never laugh the same again. Watch until the end. Because when she finally speaks, even her silence becomes unforgettable. The gates of the Whitmore estate swung open with mechanical elegance, revealing rolling gardens, valet lines of luxury cars, and the glittering facade of a mansion built for legacy, not love. Inside, laughter echoed through marble halls as relatives in designer gowns floated like royalty, clinking glasses and exchanging compliments that sounded more like transactions. And then came Emma, stepping out of a cab, alone. Her dress was soft blue cotton, pressed but plain. Her shoes, scuffed, beige, borrowed from a friend. She carried no handbag, only a small box of chocolates wrapped in brown paper and a ribbon she tied herself. As she crossed the threshold, heads turned, not in admiration, but confusion. Who let the help in? Someone muttered. Oh, it's just her. Her cousin Claire smirked behind a champagne flute. Did you come straight from the library? Emma smiled faintly, not because it was funny, but because it was always like this. Her uncle gave her a half hug, eyes already looking past her. Emma, you made it. We weren't sure you'd dress for the occasion. A chorus of polite chuckles followed. She looked around for a familiar face. Someone warm, someone safe. None. Her sister Madison walked by, barely glancing. Don't wander too far. We're taking the family photo soon. You can stand at the edge. Emma nodded. Her fingers gripped the chocolate box tightly. She stepped into the grand ballroom, its chandelier humming like judgment overhead, and for a moment, it felt like every eye in the room carried the same thought. Why is she even here? The champagne flowed like liquid status, and so did the cruelty. Subtle at first, then sharper with every minute Emma stayed in the room. Her aunt passed by, eyeing her dress with a frozen smile. How vintage. Brave of you. A cousin leaned in to whisper. She still uses a flip phone, right? And laughter bubbled like poison around them. Emma tried to blend into a quiet corner near the hors d'oeuvres, but even there, the mockery followed. Don't touch the caviar, someone said, loud enough for her to hear. It's probably too rich for your palate, another added, or her paycheck. She moved toward the garden for air, but not before catching the tail end of a live stream. Her cousin filming her and whispering, when your bloodline includes charity cases. Emma stood still. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched as her own family made sport of her. Her job, mocked. A librarian, so retro. Her shoes, shamed. Are those payless? Her absence from family vacations, is judged. She couldn't even afford the Airbnb split. Her entire presence was treated like an inconvenience, a mistake, a stain on their curated image. Even when she tried to offer the chocolates she brought, her aunt took the box with 2 fingers, examined it like trash, then placed it discreetly on a side table behind the wine coolers. So thoughtful, she said with dead eyes. Emma forced a breath. She had grown used to being underestimated. But this wasn't underestimation. This was erasure, from her own blood, from her own name. And still, she stayed. Not because she needed to, but because part of her hoped someone, anyone, might remember she belonged here too. That hope was fading. Dinner was served beneath a ceiling painted with cherubs, as if heaven itself were forced to witness what came next. A long banquet table stretched across the grand hall, shimmering with gold-trimmed china and crystal so polished it reflected back every cruel smirk. Emma sat at the far end, next to a folded chair no one claimed. Her plate untouched, her water poured last. The air around her was colder, thinner, as if her presence absorbed the warmth. Her father stood to make a toast. To legacy, he began, voice smooth like practiced performance. To the Whitmore name and all we've built, and to those who, well, still have a long way to go. His eyes flicked to Emma. The room chuckled. glasses raised. Emma looked down. A cousin across from her added, "And to those who prove genetics aren't everything." More laughter. Her sister Madison smirked, swirling wine, then casually reached across the table and accidentally knocked over her glass. Red liquid blooming across Emma's blouse like a wound. "Oops," she said, without even pretending. Gasps rang out, but no one moved to help. A waiter brought napkins, not sympathy. Emma stood, trembling. "I'll go clean." "Maybe just stay out of the next photo," her mother said without looking up. "You'll thank me later." Emma froze. Her uncle leaned in, pretending to be kind. "The children's table has more room. You might be more comfortable there." "Sweetheart," her chair scraped as she stepped away, eyes burning, voice silent. Then it happened. A cousin snapped a picture of her walking off, wet and humiliated. "Caption it," someone whispered. The other replied, "Family disappointment, Lev, at 7. And they laughed again, loud, unapologetic. Emma reached the hallway, fingers clutching the ruined blouse, heart slamming so loudly it drowned everything else. She turned toward the door. She was done, ready to disappear. But before she could take another step, the sound of an engine outside cut through the air like a blade. The engine's low growl reverberated through the marble floors, too deep, too smooth to belong to any of the valet-driven cars outside. Heads turned, conversations stopped mid-laugh. Someone peeked through the tall, arched windows just as a sleek black Rolls Royce Phantom pulled into the circular drive, its polished chrome glinting like judgment under the chandelier, light spilling through the glass. "Who the hell is that?" a cousin muttered. "Is someone actually late to our event?" The driver stepped out, opened the back door with military precision. Pièces main, and out stepped a man the room had never seen, but instantly felt tall, composed. Wrapped in tailored charcoal with the stillness of command and the eyes of someone used to being obeyed. He didn't look around. He didn't need to. He walked through the double doors without hesitation, shoes silent against the stone floor, every step cutting through the tension like a scalpel. In his hand, nothing, no flowers, no apology, just certainty. He crossed the foyer and stopped when he saw her. Emma, standing alone near the hallway, blouse stained, eyes glassy, hands still trembling from holding back the dam of everything she never said. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. In front of the entire dining room, in front of her family's shocked, frozen silence, he reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and kissed her forehead with a tenderness that shattered the room. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said softly. "Traffic was a nightmare." Emma blinked. "Lucas, you didn't have to come." Her voice broke. "You looked like you needed backup," he said, turning to face the stunned crowd with a calm that was somehow more terrifying than rage. Her father stood, mouth parting to speak, but no sound came. The air had shifted. Power had entered the room. Not loud, not flashy, but dressed in quiet armor, standing beside the girl they all tried to bury. "And who exactly are you?" her uncle asked, trying to sound composed. Lucas glanced at him, then at Emma. "I'm the man who loves her," he said, "and the one who's been watching how you treat her long enough." Someone laughed nervously. "Well, you're quite the entrance maker, but we're a private gathering. Not anymore." Lucas cut in. "You made her humiliation public. It's only fair I return the gesture." He looked down at Emma's blouse, still soaked in wine, then around at the people who did nothing. "You people should have remembered one thing," he said, voice like cold steel. "Sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest protectors." A beat of silence followed. The air had changed, and it was only just beginning. The room had fallen so silent. You could hear the ice melt in untouched glasses. Everyone stared at Lucas like he had arrived from another world, one they didn't understand, and suddenly feared. Her father cleared his throat and tried to salvage dignity with a brittle smile. "Well, Mr. Lucas, thank you for dropping in. Emma rarely brings guests. What is it you do exactly?" Lucas turned to him slowly, with the same calm one might show to a child holding a match near gasoline. "I own Hayes Consortium, The words dropped like a stone into a still lake. Eyes widened. Glasses froze mid-air. A cousin nearly choked on her dessert. Wait. Hayes. The one in Forbes. Lucas nodded. I also chair 3 boards and oversee a global philanthropic foundation. But tonight, I'm just here for Emma. Her aunt gasped, a hand flying to her chest like she'd been physically struck. You're that Lucas Hayes. A younger cousin stammered. You built the Eden AI platform? You spoke at Davos last year. Another voice whispered, his net worth is over $90 billion. Actually, Lucas corrected gently, it's a bit more now. Her mother's wine glass trembled in her grip. The uncle who had joked earlier about her long way to go turned ghostly pale. One of the cousins who mocked her outfit now looked down at her own designer dress like it had turned to dust. Her father, once the loudest voice in the room, was now the smallest presence in it. We didn't know, he muttered. Lucas tilted his head. Didn't know what? That the woman you belittled was more valuable than all of this. His hand swept over the chandelier, the portraits, the sterile legacy. Or that she's the only person in this room who sees people for who they are, not what they wear. Someone whispered. He flew here in a Rolls, just for her. Lucas looked at Emma again, at her eyes, still wet but no longer broken. I came, he said clearly, because when you love someone and you see them hurting, you show up, not with noise, but with truth. Her sister, who had spilled the wine, tried to step forward. It was just a joke. Lucas stopped her with a single glance. The difference between cruelty and a joke is who's laughing. The entire room was still. And then came the final blow. Lucas pulled a small velvet box from his coat pocket. Not with flash, but quiet finality. Anne handed it to Emma. She opened it slowly. Inside a ring, elegant, singular, timeless, not for tonight, he whispered. For when you decide, on your terms. And just like that, the balance of power shattered. The girl they humiliated had just been handed the world. The silence was shattered, not with a scream, but with a single buzz. Lucas's phone was vibrating once in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and smiled faintly. Not at the message, but at the timing. Perfect, he murmured. Then, in front of everyone, he forwarded the message to his assistant with one word: execute. No one knew what it meant, but within 60 seconds, they would. Her uncle's phone buzzed first. He glanced down, confused, his face drained of color. No, this has to be a mistake. Next, her cousin, then her mother, then the brother-in-law who mocked Emma's thrift store shoes. One by one, phones lit up with alerts, messages, and calendar cancellations, bank errors, freezes, revoked contracts. Her father's email pinged. What? Subject line, termination of loan guarantee. Effective immediately. A friend of the family gasped, scrolling her inbox. He's pulling our foundation sponsor. Her sister stared blankly at her screen. My modeling agency just dropped me. Emma didn't move. Lucas hadn't raised his voice once. He simply stood there, unbothered, while the empire of entitlement collapsed around him. I believe in accountability, he said, tone quiet but unflinching. Every person here who humiliated Emma publicly, knowingly, repeatedly, has received proportional consequences. No rage, no revenge, just an adjustment. Her father snapped. You can't just waltz in and destroy everything we've built. You did that? Lucas interrupted, eyes sharp. The moment you decided your own daughter was beneath you, I just stopped protecting your consequences. Her aunt stepped forward in desperation. Please, Lucas, this family, he cut in, failed to recognize its greatest asset. His hand gently found Emma's, and it won't be forgiven with words, only with time. If ever, someone cried, someone cursed, but most just stood there, paralyzed, because the truth was unbearable. They had destroyed their relationship with Emma for the illusion of superiority, and now that illusion was gone, all that remained was the mirror, and in it, They saw who they really were. Lucas turned to Emma. We don't owe them a scene. We owe them silence. She nodded, not out of weakness, but agreement. And as they began walking out together, she didn't need to look back. She could feel it. The shift, the silence, the sound of everything breaking without making a sound. Justice hadn't come with fire. It came with a choice. And she had finally chosen herself. As Emma and Lucas walked toward the grand entrance, their steps echoed like truth, reclaiming its place in a house that had long forgotten it. The silence behind them was thick with regret. But ahead, there was someone watching. Someone who hadn't laughed, hadn't filmed, hadn't looked away. A soft voice called out, hesitant, Emma. It was Lily, Emma's youngest cousin. Barely 20, shy, quiet, always in the corner at family events, never cruel, never loud. Earlier that evening, she had offered Emma a napkin before anyone else had even moved. She had whispered, "You can sit by me," when the others had turned their backs. And now, she stood near the coat rack, uncertain if she was allowed to speak. Emma turned, eyes softer now. "Hi, Lily." Lucas paused, studying the girl with the quiet grace of someone who saw without judging. "You're Lily," she nodded. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Not for them. For not saying more." Lucas glanced at Emma, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim envelope. "What are you studying?" he asked gently. "Nursing?" Lily replied. "I work part-time at a diner to cover tuition." "It's slow. Not anymore," Lucas said, handing her the envelope. "That's a full scholarship. Tuition, housing, books. And if you ever need a mentor, Emma and I are always one call away." Lily froze. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope and read the letter inside. Official stationery, signed by the Hayes Foundation. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Emma smiled, "and promise you'll never let anyone make you feel small for being kind." Lily nodded fiercely, then rushed forward and hugged Emma tightly. The kind of hug that had no performance, no calculation, just gratitude. The rest of the family watched, stunned, as one of their own was lifted not by status, but by decency. Lucas turned to the staff, and the servers, the cleaners, the driver who had quietly helped Emma clean the wine from her dress earlier. "Bonuses will be issued tonight," he said calmly. "And if any of you ever need a reference, you'll have mine. Emma trusts you. That's enough." Emma looked at the people who had been invisible all evening, just like she had been, and now saw them standing a little taller. This wasn't just about punishment anymore. It was about realignment. It was about remembering who matters. And as they finally walked out together, hand in hand, it wasn't just her name that had been restored. It was her worth, and it had been seen. Not by power, but by love. The cold night air greeted Emma like an old friend. Quiet, still, honest. The stars blinked above the Whitmore estate, as if waiting for something that had never happened before her voice. She paused at the top of the marble steps, hands still in Lucas's, then turned around. The entire family stood frozen in the doorway, some pale, some flushed, all of them exposed beneath the glow of their own making. Emma took one breath. Deep, measured, unshaking. "I spent years trying to earn your approval," she began, her voice low but unwavering. "I thought if I worked harder, smiled wider, stayed quiet when it hurt, that one day you'd let me feel like I belonged." Her mother blinked, but said nothing. Her father looked away. "But tonight," Emma continued, "you didn't just humiliate me. You revealed yourselves. You showed me that the approval I wanted was never worth wanting." The words sliced clean, not with rage, but clarity. "You judge by clothes, by cars, by how loudly someone announces their success. But the man you ignored, the one who walked in without a title card or ego, he saw me, not for what I wore, or earned, or owned, but for who I was when no one was clapping." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. She had learned that true strength doesn't scream. It remembers. "You made a spectacle of my silence," she said, eyes scanning the faces that once looked down at her. "But I made a decision in your—" A pause. Then she raised her chin just slightly, like lifting a blade with a smile. "You don't get to define my worth anymore. I do. And I'm done shrinking to fit your table." Gasps were swallowed. No one laughed, because they knew. The girl who had once waited for a seat was now the one who could have bought the table and burned it down. But she didn't. She simply turned back toward Lucas, her voice one last time rising. Not in fury, but in freedom. "Let's go." And as she walked down those steps into the night, she didn't leave broken, she left whole. And the silence she left behind, it wasn't shameful, it was awe. The Rolls Royce waited at the curb like a silent witness to everything they'd survived. Emma slid into the back seat beside Lucas, not as someone rescued, but as someone reborn. As the door closed behind her, the estate loomed in the distance, glowing with chandeliers and empty pride. But she didn't look back, not once. Lucas reached over and gently took her hand. No words were needed. He knew. She had carried herself through fire and chosen not to burn. The engine hummed to life, and the car pulled away, gliding down the long driveway as though erasing every insult with each passing second. Somewhere behind them, relatives still stood frozen in disbelief, in silence, in the wreckage of their own making. But in that car, something new was forming. Not revenge, not bitterness, but peace. For the first time in years, Emma exhaled fully. "I never wanted to embarrass them," she whispered. Lucas smiled faintly, eyes on the road ahead. "You didn't. They did that to themselves. You just finally stopped apologizing for existing." She nodded, tears not of sadness, but release gathering in her eyes. "It's strange," she said, voice soft, "how quiet it is after everything breaks." "That's not silence," he said. "That's space. You finally have room to breathe." The city lights approached in the distance, but Emma's phone buzzed before they reached the freeway. A message from Lily. "Thank you for speaking, for not backing down. I watched you, and I believe in myself now because of it." Emma stared at the message, then smiled. Just one person, one voice changed. That was enough. Somewhere across town, a girl sitting in her apartment scrolled past the live stream replay. She didn't know Emma. She didn't know the Whitmores. But she saw the wine-stained blouse, the quiet dignity, the man who showed up, and the woman who stood tall. And in that moment, another story began. A ripple. Because sometimes healing doesn't shout. It whispers into someone else's life and says you're allowed to stand up too. Emma leaned her head gently on Lucas's shoulder. No grand speech, no fireworks. Just two souls driving towards something better, wrapped not in wealth, but in understanding. And as the city opened before them, she knew she was never going back. The screen fades from city lights to soft black, not in defeat, but in closure. A single line appears, quiet and sharp, like truth whispered in a crowded room. You never know who someone really is, until the moment you try to destroy them. And then, images begin to roll, not of Emma in designer gowns or magazine covers, but of her in small, human moments, smiling as she stacks books in a community library, laughing with Lily on a park bench, holding Lucas's hand in silence while he reads, clips flood social media. Her quiet walk out of the estate, Lucas's calm confrontation, the wine-stained blouse she never bothered to replace. Millions watch, millions reposts, but none of it was staged. None of it is curated. It was real, raw, unpolished power wrapped in restraint. A stitched-together video montage shows side by side the moment they mocked her, the moment she stood up, the moment she chose not to destroy them back. And in comment sections across the internet, strangers write, she walked out like a storm in heels. She didn't scream. She dismantled them with grace. I've been Emma. I won't be silent again. Then, one final voiceover. Emma's soft and unshaking. Never underestimate the quiet ones. We're not weak. We're watching. We remember who you are when no one's looking. And when the time comes, We don't fight for attention. We remind the world that true worth doesn't need permission to rise, fade to black. A final line appears: be kind. Not because they might be powerful. Be kind because you never know who's about to change your world.